I was actually explaining this to my daughter, and like you could see as I was explaining it to her, you could see the light bulb come on, right? Like, yes, like, oh, this is a game. Oh, that's a game. Oh, this other thing's a game. And what she said to me is she said, that's why you're detached. That's why you're able to detach. That's why you don't get mad, because this is just a game and you're observing what's happening in the game. And so you're not going to get emotional because like, oh, well, when you lose a point, do you run off the field and break down? No, you're like, okay, lost a point, make some adjustments. Like that's the way it is. And by the way, there's all these little subordinate games that are being played. Ultimately, compared to the supreme game, they don't really matter that much. Yeah. So you can kind of shrug them off. Yeah. Now, listen, we all know that there's people that get wrapped up in a game, right? They get wrapped up. They're 17 years old. They got the girlfriend. They get wrapped up in that one relationship game. And when she dumps him, that guy's freaking done. Wants to kill himself or does kill himself, right? Everybody that's watching that goes, hey, man, that was just one little game that you were playing. What are you doing? Don't give it up over one little game. That's like you're playing, Pop Warner football. You lose a game, end of the world. No, it's not the end of the world. It's one game. What? Yeah. That's another thing my daughter pointed out. I was like, oh, she goes, oh, and you learn from these games. I'm like, yes, you do learn. I do learn from the game. Part of the game is, oh, I made a mistake in the game. Cool, I just learned and I won't make that mistake again. So there's a detachment that comes from this view that's very powerful to utilize. Just to say, oh, didn't get the job. Oh, that's okay. That's part of the game, and I didn't win in this particular game at that particular moment. I learned from it. Here's what I'm going to do. Relationship didn't work out. Oh, okay. What can I learn from that? Not the end of the world. Not the last game I'm ever going to play. No, there's going to be actually a lot more games. The worst thing to have happen is you're in the water and you don't know that you're in the water. Yeah. You're in the game and you don't know that you're in the game. So this should be, for some people, this will be, hearing what we're talking about, should be a perspective shift for their life. Realizing that they're in a game, that there's rules, that there's objectives, that you're going to have opponents, you're going to have allies. All these things are going on. They're all going on. And if you don't recognize it, you're going to come up short. There are obviously things we can't control, but we can usually control a lot more than we think. Yeah, you can usually control a lot more that's going on in your world. You control a lot more than you think you can. Yeah. And so keeping that in mind, this is part of the game of mental health. And what's scariest about mental health, I think, of all these, is that I think it's the hardest one to track for yourself, right? It's the hardest one to go, oh, I don't feel good about myself. I don't feel like I'm in a good spot. I think it's hard for people to track that. So it's worth, once again, taking a step back and writing down like, okay, I got all these. I got my physical health. I got my job. How satisfying is my job? How satisfying are my relationships? Where am I at? How do I feel at the end of the day? What's my stress levels? So these are things to think about. And when you start taking all these things, when you start taking your job and your work and your health and your fitness and your relationships that you're in, including friends, including family, then you add mental health in that. You take all those things together and you get life. Right? You get life. And that's the supreme game, right? That's the big game that we're playing. And obviously there are rules in life. And as I started off by saying, we have a lot of say over the rules of the game that we're going to play. Where they come from, what set of rules are you going to follow, what rules are going to bring you the most gratification, how do you even pick those rules? And then once we figured out the game that we are going to play, how do we win?